with staff on a daily basis at JAO with our design staff and with other departments. And so you do get that opportunity. And so today what I'm going to talk about really is the things that we do in the Compton field office. And also some of the challenges we have. A lot of people in the main office don't really understand all of what our challenges are. So hopefully today I can explain some of those to you, since there's a lot of districts people in them. The presentation outline is just really what the district's background is, and then our current challenges. And then I'll go through each of these programs, our CCTV, line cleaning, crown spray, each of these programs, and really the issues we might have with, I'm not going to, and the issues we have with them and kind of how it's evolved. I started in the wastewater collection system section in 2003. I was in construction before, and prior to that in design. And since 2003, it seems like all the engineers that used to work there, they're all gone. So I'm the last of the guys that first in 2003. The majority went on to other departments in the districts. And so I'm the old guard, and I've only been there a few years. But a lot of this evolved during that process, during that time. And one of the reasons it evolved and actually was being documented is because the district was put under an administrative order. And that administrative order was to reduce the frequency and volume of sewer spills. And so when that came out, we had to document all of our programs. A lot of our programs were already well established, but not really well documented. For those of you who are familiar with the districts, this is the area that we serve. It's about 800 square miles service area. There's 78 cities and unincorporated LA County. Sorry. We have, like Basil said, 1,300 miles of sewer. It's actually 1,400 miles. That 100 miles of sewer that we leave off is sewer that's out of service. It's not abandoned. We can put it back in service if we need to, but it requires quite a bit of work, removing bulkheads, things like that. But we do have that available to us. So we say 1,300, it's really 1,400. And out of that 1,400, there's 40 miles of sewer force mains. If you look at just what materials our sewers are made out of, 53% is concrete. Out of that 53%, 15% is lined, the other is unlined concrete. We have 45% of BCP, and then 2% of various materials, including ductile iron, plastic, all these other types of materials. But the majority, you almost could split it half and half, concrete and BCP. And when you break it down a little further, each of those districts, are independent, but there are some sewers that are jointly owned. 423 are jointly owned. The remainder are owned by the individual district. And just to go over a little more of what the sewer is comprised of, ranges, you can see the various ranges, 8 to 15, 16 to 27, greater than 27. We don't really typically, from an operations standpoint, break them up this way. We break them up more in the smaller diameter sewers, 8 to 18, and that's just because that's what our jetter can clean. And then we have bigger sewers after that. Clay pipes end at about 42 inches. That's the biggest you can get. That's not really reflected in here, but it's kind of just to give you a perspective of what sewers we have to maintain. And our annual budget is $40 million a year. Just to give you an idea, in 2003, our budget was about $29 million, and then it's slowly been increasing to $30 million, $32 million, $35 million, $36, till we get to $40 million. And what are we really doing that's that different? I couldn't tell you. But in doing some analysis later on, I'll tell you kind of what happened and why those costs started increasing. And really our challenge now, biggest challenge that's been put forward is controlling our O&M costs. In the past, when we do our O&M, we do what we need to do. That's my superintendent. We don't do any elective work. Everything that we're doing is because we have to do. So that's why he doesn't want us not spend money. But we have a process in which we can really look at the detail of where this money is going. So we started doing that in the last couple of years, trying to really understand how we can better control costs. In terms of condition assessment, maximizing the life of the sewer, First of all, you got to know what you have. And in 2006, we finished our condition assessment where we actually TV'd all of our sewer lines. Prior to that, there were some sewers that we hadn't seen before. It just hadn't gotten into the schedule. And we developed a schedule in 2004 to actually say, well, this size sewer will TV every 5 years, this material every so many years. And that came to be in the recent past. Now, it existed before, but it wasn't well documented. So our staff kind of used their best judgment as to what they thought needed video inspecting and what can go a little further on. And then our planning process since the mid-1980s, whenever we do identify damaged sewers, we keep track of them in what we call our R&R report. It's since changed names, but what it is, it's an annual document. Every year we update it, and when we identify sewers that need repair or hydraulic relief, we note it down, and then every year we look at it again. And the idea is that based on their rating, they be worked on by our sewer design section. The highest priority is worked on first, of course. And then capacity assurance, measuring flows. We had, actually, only up to a few years ago, we didn't really have a large number of flow meters. We had a flow crew, and they had a series of flow meters, but they would go and measure flows at each of these individual districts, and over time they'd cover the entire agency. But a couple of years ago, we purchased 100 or so more meters to try and increase that frequency, and to also try to understand what's happening during wet weather. You can understand if you don't have that many meters and you happen to be in sewer during a time frame and then there's a storm and here you had a sewer over here that was reaching capacity, you really wouldn't know about it because you were busy in a different section. And then compliance with overflow prohibition. This is really getting back to that administrative order that we're under. We have been under it for the past 6 years now. We've asked for relief primarily because we've completed a lot of the work that we said we would complete. That administrative order, though, is still in effect, and we're required to complete a certain number of projects. We've completed the majority of them. Where we haven't completed the work, and it was scheduled out this way. We said we were going to do some work, but it was going to take a longer period of time. And that was construction or design and construction of redundant force mains. Those were scheduled out to be done through 2014. And the idea of redundant force mains really was something that we came up with because we had difficulty explaining why, you know, if you had a failure in a sewer force main, why you couldn't react faster. And it's because, as many of you know, sewer force mains pressure lines, if you turn the pump station off, you're just going to overflow upstream, and you really can't turn it off. So that leads to these really large sewer overflows. And so EPA essentially said you have to, in locations where you can't control the flow, and what we ended up deciding was 200 gallons per minute lower we can control, but if anything higher, we really couldn't. And some of our pump stations already had redundancy built in. So just back to the money, where's our money going? That $40 million. Well, you can see a big piece of that pie is chemicals. Now, local collection system agencies aren't going to have that expenditure. They're primarily sewer cleaning, CCTV, flow monitoring, that type of thing. Our chemicals is really primarily for odor control. And you can see that's $14.8 million.